So today we are going to talk about what is the object-oriented programming in Java and what is the significance of it in Java. So in Java, when we are going to program, we are going to divide our area of concern into small areas of concern so that the entire project can become more manageable. So this division is nothing but you are dividing your project into different objects, and since my objects are going to have multiple things repeated, multiple states common in each of these objects, we can create it in a form of a class. So that is what we are going to discuss here. So object-oriented programming in Java is programming paradigm that focuses on organizing your software design around your object, which are the instances of the class that encapsulates the data and the behavior. So let's discuss about what are the different components that are part of this object-oriented programming. So the first major component of your object-oriented programming is an object and a class. So as I said, we will be creating our focus on the object creation, but my objects are going to be repeated. Just to give you a very simple example of an e-commerce website, I will be joining that e-commerce website as a user. Multiple users will be joining that e-commerce website. Most of the behaviors that we will be showing on that e-commerce website are going to be same. We are going to add the products in the cart. We are going to log in. We are going to log out. Whereas the e-commerce website is also going to ask me my details like my name, my phone number, my address, my email address. Now it's going to ask the same set of things, same set of values to all the users. So this is what is an object. So when I am interacting with that e-commerce website, I am one of the object interacting with that e-commerce website. But there are multiple objects interacting with that same site. So we all are the objects interacting with that system. But while doing the programming, we are not going to repeat as a programmer a program for every object. Rather, we will be doing the programming only once in a form of a class. Class is acting like a blueprint. It's like a template that every object will be having. What stage of my object I'm going to save as the values, what is the behavior that object is going to show, everything we are going to encapsulate within a class. So what is a class? Class is a template or the blueprint that defines the structure and the behavior of an object. It normally encapsulates your variables, that is your states, and your methods. Whereas when we talk about objects, objects are nothing but the instances of those classes. For every new object interacting with our system, we are going to create a new object of our class. So objects are basically my fundamental building block of any project that we are going to create. How are my objects created? Objects in Java are created with the help of this new keyword. This new keyword indicates to my JVM that a new memory has to be allocated for my object in which I can store my data. So just to show you one simple example. So this is the syntax in which we are going to create a class and also create the object of that class. So here we are creating a class called as example, declaring a variable in that variable in this class called as message, and also one method called as show behavior, show message. So this is my state. This is going to indicate my state, and this is going to indicate my behavior. Now, in order to actually save something in this particular variable or call this method, first we will have to create the object of this class example. So here in my main method, the first thing I'm doing is I'm creating the object of that class. Object of the class will be created with the help of this new keyword. But this object will be referred by another variable called as obj, which is indicated of type example. Specifying that is obj can only and only refer to a memory location which is nothing but an examples object. Now using this variable which is pointing to my object, we can initialize the message variable which is part of my object, and we can also call the method which is the behavior of my class. So here it is more of an object oriented. This is basically an idea behind object oriented. My variable's value is getting stored for an object. My method is getting called for an object. This is the overall concept of your object oriented. Now let's understand here one more thing. If you will notice that in this example itself, I am creating an object, and when I'm creating an object, the syntax again is very much similar to me calling a method. So is there any method getting called in the background? Yes, there is a method getting called in the background, and this is a special method called as constructor method. So what is a constructor? Constructors are the special methods that are used to initialize the state of an object when it is created, to initialize the variables of an object as soon as they are created. We can make use of the constructor because constructor method gets called automatically. We don't have to call this method. It gets called automatically as soon as the object is created. What is the purpose of the constructor method? Constructor method is used to ensure that all my objects are starting with the same initial value. There is no discrepancy between the initial value of the object. Later on, we can update the values of my objects using different methods. There are two major types of constructors that we can have. One are your default constructors and another are your parameterized constructors. In fact, your default constructors can also be categorized into two. The actual default constructor, which is not created by you, but by the compiler, because each and every class in Java by default has a constructor. So even if we don't create a constructor as a programmer, my compiler, when it's going to compile my code, is going to place a constructor in my program. But let's say if I want to give some initialization code for my object, we can have two types of constructors. First is your zero argument constructor, which will become my default constructor by default. And second one is my parameterized constructor. So just to give you an example of how these two constructors will be moving, let's move on to the next slide. So here we can see in the same class, we have again created a class example, but this time having two variables, message of type string and number of type int. In this, we have defined two constructors. One is a constructor without any parameters, which will by default become my default constructor when I'm going to create an object of class without passing any parameters, without passing any values. Whereas here, if you will notice, there is an example, again the constructor created, but here we are passing two parameters. One is of type string and another one is of type integer. So where are these constructors going to be called? So if you look at the main method, when we are creating the object of the class without any parameters, so when we are saying new of example, no values are being passed, my default constructor will get called and the message will be set to default for that object and the number will be set to 0 for that object. Whereas if you look at the second example of the object creation, we are passing two values. One hello, that is my string value, and second is 1 to 3, which is an integer value. These two values actually don't go to my message variable of my object or to the number variable of my object. Rather, they go to my constructor's parameter. So here, this value hello will go to my message parameter, which is declared for the constructor, and 1 to 3 will go for my number parameter, which is declared for constructor. Then inside this constructor declaration, we have used a special keyword called as this keyword. This keyword is used to point to my current object. If I want to specify that this variable belongs to my object. It does not belong to my constructor. In our case, like here, the name of my parameter variable is same as that of my actual state variable. So how do I distinguish? So that distinguishing can be done with the help of this keyword. This keyword says, this dot message says that this message variable is for my object. So get the value from here, give it to my parameter. From the parameter, assign it to my message variable of the object. Similarly, 1, 2, 3 will go to this variable number, that is my parameter variable number. And then here using this keyword, we are assigning it to my object variable number. So this is to just give you an example of how the constructors are used in your class. Now let's just focus on what are the four major pillars of OOPS concept. So first one that we have is your encapsulation. Encapsulation is nothing but binding your state, that is your variables and methods together inside the class. So in the upcoming slides, we will be exploring more into it. Then we will be having inheritance, wherein the reusability of your class will come into the picture. Polymorphism, wherein the same function or the same behavior can be duplicated by multiple things. And lastly, we have your abstraction. So abstraction is used to hide your complicated functionality from the end user. So let's explore one by one all these pillars of Java OOPS. So first one we have is encapsulation. So as I've indicated, encapsulation is nothing but encapsulating, as a word in capsule. Capsule says ingredients are added within the capsule of your medicine. Here the state and your method, the variables and your methods are encapsulated within a class. What advantage we get it by encapsulating within the classes? I can actually hide my data. So encapsulation enables us this concept for hiding my data. So how this entire concept of hiding is implemented in your encapsulation? So encapsulation means it is the synonym or it can be used for hiding the details. So encapsulation is the practice of hiding the internal implementation details of an object, exposing only and only the necessary information to the end user. Importance here, encapsulation helps to achieve the data abstraction. It improves the code manageability and also enhance the security and reliability of your code since we are able to hide the data, which I don't want everyone to see. My data is comparatively secure now. Principles here is encapsulation follow the principle of information hiding where the data's object is actually hidden, but there can be some functions which we can create using which the state can become accessible because we don't want to hide direct access. We want to hide the direct accessibility, but not the indirect accessibility. So that we can achieve with the help of methods. So let's see here now. These are the access modifiers that we will be using in Java to achieve encapsulation. So what are the access modifiers? There are 4 access modifiers as you can see. So one is public. When we say anything to be public, that means it is accessible to everyone. No restriction on the access here. But if you want to put a restriction on the access, we can go for private access modifier. Private access modifier will make the things accessible only and only within the class. Nothing can be accessible outside the class. Then we have your protected access modifier and your default access modifier. Now in Java, we have a concept called as packages, wherein multiple classes can be grouped together in a single package and we can have multiple packages in a project. So if we have a variable or a method declared as default or protected in a class, those can be accessed by default only within that same package, not outside the package. Protected have a little bit of a higher access compared to default, wherein in a different package when we are going to implement the concept of inheritance, no, we can inherit the classes in a different package, not restricted to only that single package. So that is the only advantage. If I go about the level of access, your public have the highest access. The next access, the accessibility is given to your protected, accessible within the package, but few components can be accessible outside the package also. Default, only within the package, only within the classes of my package, and the least access is given to your private members. Here we have a simple example of a class which is created as public and its members, if you see, are declared as private. So class is accessible to me outside anywhere, but its members which are declared as private are not accessible outside the class. So how can I change this accessibility? What are these members I want to make it accessible outside? So for that, we can create something called as getters and setter methods in our class, which is actually a prerequisite for creating your POJO classes. Plain old Java object classes can be created using this concept, wherein my properties, my states are kept as private. But in order to access those states, we can create getter setter methods. So what are my getter setter methods? Getter setter methods are the methods that provide the controlled access to the object's private data members. It can also be used for the validation purpose. Validation means while setting the values, maybe I want to check a criteria. If my value is satisfying that criteria, then only I want to set the value. Otherwise, I want to restrict the change in the value or the state of my object. Flexibility, getter and setter methods also allows us to change the functionality, overall functionality of my code without actually having to do anything to do or actually implementing any functionality change in my actual class. So how these getter setter methods can be used? So similar to what we have seen earlier, we have a class here, class person. So we have here two variables declared. One is your string variable of, with the name as name, and integer variable with the name as age. Both the variables, if you notice, are set with their private access. The private access means only accessible within this class person. But these two members, I can set the values and get the values using my getter method. So you can see in the set name method, we are taking the input from the user and then we are setting the value. Whereas in the getter method, what we are doing is we are just reading. We are just reading that variable name and we are returning that value. Similar thing is done for the age and similar getter setter methods are added for that also. So similar, you can do it for all the variables. To summarize, we can say here we have the private methods. That is your name, and for that we have a getter method and a setter method getting created. Now, as I use the term packages for my default, this is the basic idea to give you an overview of what is a package. So, what is a package? Package is nothing but a component created in Java which regulates the access to the members. Like if a variable or a method is having a default access, then it can be accessible only everywhere within the package. What is a package? Package is nothing but a collection of my classes that is basically created for the organization point of view. So they group the related classes, enhance the manageability of your classes, and also simplify the class. You can have the repeated name classes in multiple packages also. We have some predefined or built-in packages available in Java, like your java.util, java.io, and java.lang packages. Whereas there are some user-defined packages also available that are created by us as a developer. If I want to use the inter-package classes, so I have a class in one package and I want to use it in another package, that is also quite possible with the help of your import statement. So import statement allows you to access the classes or the interfaces from another package without having to specify the class name. Also we can do it. So what are the different ways to import it? So import के लिए you can use single class import, like from my package where are hundreds of classes, I can say I want to use only one class, so that can be done. Or we also have a wildcard import. Wildcard import can be used for the asterisk symbol. Asterisk symbol indicates just import all the classes of that particular package. Wherein you are not sure which class you want to use, you can go for this wildcard option. One more topic that we need to touch upon here is the static. So we have talked about the object and the state of the object. So any variable which is part of your class, when we are going to create an object of that class, the copy of that variable is getting created for individual object. So what if I want to declare a variable which is just declared only once and is getting used by all the objects, somewhat similar to the concept of an object your global variable, wherein you are declaring a variable and it's getting used for all the objects commonly. And that is possible with the help of your static variable. So you just need to make use of the static keyword before your variable. Only one copy of this variable will get created for the entire class. So even if you create 10 objects, only one copy will be utilized. Whereas your functionality also, if you want it to be not restricted to an object, but should be just accessible via the class. So these type of methods can also be created using your static keywords. Methods like static keywords can be called without having to create the instance of the class. We also have a static block like this created. So whatever static variables we have created, if I want to initialize the value, because constructor will be getting called only and only when I'm going to create an object of that class. But static variables will be declared before my objects can be created. So in order to initialize the value of your static variables, we can make use of this static block. So these are the different topics that we have covered up in this session. First we started out what is OOPS concept. What are the different components of your OOPS, that is class and an object. The four pillars, that is your encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism and inheritance. Encapsulation can be implemented by hiding your data using your access modifiers like public, private, protected and your default. Then we also talked about the concept of what is a package, that is organizing your classes in such a way that you are able to manage your code in a better way. And lastly, we touched upon the topic of your static variables and the methods, wherein you can create the methods and the variables that can be accessible at the class level, not at the object level. I hope this session was being useful to you. Thank you. So let's see a small example of all the concepts that we have just now talked about. So what is a class? So you can see here, I have created a class using the class keyword, and the class name is bank account. So anytime a new bank account is to be created, now it will be created by creating the object of this class. The different states that each and every bank account will be having is the account number. There will be some balance in that account. There will be an account holder, the person whose account it is, and there will be a pin to access that particular account number. In order to create the object, this is how the object of this class will be getting created. So here we can see in my main method, bank account. So using the knee keyword, we are creating the object of this particular class, that is my bank account. Now here we have used a constructor. Now we have discussed about two constructors also, that is my default constructors and my parameterized constructor. So in this class also, we have declared my default constructor that is only for my bank account without any parameters. So in this case, what is happening? It is initializing, it is actually calling my another constructor. So using this keyword, it is calling my another constructor where it is initializing these all values. So which constructor it is calling? It is calling my parameterized constructor, which is taking 4 parameters. So first is my bank account number, then the balance, then the holder's name, and finally we have the PIN number. In my parameterized constructor, we have declared 4 parameters. So first is my bank account number, balance, a holder's name, and my PIN number. And these are the values that we are initializing. We are making use of this keyword here in order to indicate that this is my object variable whose value needs to be set to the value which is coming as a parameter. So like here this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is coming as an account number. So that value will be set for my object here. These are the two type of constructors. Now for every member, now encapsulation is implemented here by hiding my states directly. It cannot be accessed directly. But these members I'm able to access with the help of my getters and my setters method. So here we have declared the getter methods, all the getter methods. So we have get balance method returning me balance, get account number returning me account number, account holder name returning me account holder name, pin giving me the pin back. You also have your setter methods. So setter methods are basically used to initialize. I will be passing a single value to it. So account number value to it, it will set the account number value. Balance, it will set the balance. In fact, when we are going to use it is when we will be having two methods here created. One is your withdraw method. So here we have created one withdraw method. So in the case of my withdraw method, I am making use of my getter methods and also making use of my setter method. So we'll come to that logic. Other than that, here we have created one more method called as toString method. Now, toString method is a method which is coming from a parent class of this particular class, that is my object class, which we will discuss in the inheritance part, how it is utilized here. Then we have created one more method, public method, to display the complete account details. So to print the value of my account number, balance, account holder name, everything together in one single place. Also, we have created another class here, that is your ATM application class, in which we have created one method which is a public method. My class as well as this method is public. The name of this method is withdraw, to whom which we are passing my account number, my withdraw amount, and my PIN number. The first thing in my logic we are doing is we are checking whether my PIN number is equal to this input PIN number. So whatever input PIN number is coming, so when I have set this account, I have set this account with some value. So here while creating the object and when we are withdrawing, if this PIN number is matching, my original PIN number and the input PIN number, if it is matching, then only I'll do the withdrawal. Otherwise, I'll give you an error that you have given me a wrong PIN number. If the PIN number is matching, what I'm doing is I'm first of all getting the value of my current balance. So whatever is my account number, for that account number, I'm getting my current balance. And based on that current balance, I'm deducting the amount from that current balance as my withdraw amount. And that same new value I'm using the setter method to set the value of the balance for that account. So this is where you can see the utilization of your getter method and your setter method. We are using two getter methods and one setter method here. And finally, we are just printing the value. What is the withdraw amount here? This is the amount which we have withdrawn and this is my new balance. Here in my main method, we are first creating an object of my account class. We are passing the four values, that is my account number, the name, the balance, the current balance, as well as the PIN number that needs to be set up. This display method will display all the values for me. Then we are saying we want to withdraw the amount, 200 rupees we want to withdraw from the current balance. So for that, this withdraw method. Now if you notice, this withdraw method has been created as a static method. So in order to call this withdraw method, I am not creating the object. In order to call this display account details method, I have to call it on my object. I cannot call it directly. But in order to call my withdraw method, I called it directly without having to create the object. So let's run this program and see whether the things are working fine for me or not. So currently it is printing the value of my this current account, that is the account number, balance. So it is calling my display account details method. I'm withdrawing 200, so I'm withdrawing 200. So my current balance will become 800, and that is the same value. Here using get balance, it is getting the current balance now. That is after we have subtracted 200 from it. So this is showing a simple example of your encapsulation and your object creation and construction. Let's see one small example of your static variables also. So as I given an explanation, your static variable basically means you cannot you need not create the object of that class to access it, and there's only one copy of that static variable which will get created. So here we have declared one static variable count, to whom we have initialized the value as 0. Only one copy for all the objects will be getting created. Then we have created this constructor which is initializing the value of your count variable to 1. So plus plus will increment it by 1. We are using the static blocks to initialize the value of my count variable to 10. So here we are initializing it to 0. But because of this static block, the value will be incremented to 10. It will be reinitialized to be 10. So when the object will get created, so here we are creating the first object, my count will be plus 1. So 10 plus 1, it will become 11. Here again, when I'm creating the object, my constructor will get count. The count will be incremented by 1. It's a single variable. So that single variable's value will be getting incremented, make it 12. Again, when I'm going to create the object of class, the constructor will get called. This time the count will be incremented by 1 to make it 30. Also, the static can be used with my import statement. So here we are importing the two packages, that is my java.lang math package. Star is a wildcard, indicating that all the classes of this package needs to be imported. And we also have this array. So java.util.array class we are importing here. So what are we doing here? So when we use this static keyword here, we need not specify the name of the class to call the static methods. So directly we can just call the method, that is my strt method. Even for my array, so we have declared here a sample array of 5 values. And if I want to sort these arrays, I'm simply calling this method using the sort, which is part of my array class. And since I've used this static import, I need not create the class reference or object. Nothing is required. Directly we can use it. So let's run this example and see whether we are getting the final values as 11, 12, 13 or not. So this is what my static variable is returning me as a result. This is the output of my square root method, and this is my sorted array value. So that's it for today. Thank you everyone.